So it's your wedding your way, right? However, we know with an engagement full of unsolicited opinions and hours on Pinterest, you may feel overwhelmed by all the options. Our wedding wingman is here to take the weight off your shoulders and help you find the wedding colors that are right for you. In this video, you'll learn to think like a wedding planner and consider the season, the venue, and the vibe you want to give your guests. Now, let's go see who's getting you ready for your day your way.
Well, thanks Vanessa for that great introduction. So hi everybody, again, I'm Ashley McCone with Always Faultless Productions, and we are a wedding planning and design studio. And today I'm really excited because we're gonna be talking to you guys about colors. So we're gonna actually start by kind of going over some of the do's and don'ts about picking your wedding colors, and then we're gonna dive into some of the popular color palettes by season. So let's get started with going over the do's of finding your wedding colors. So let's start with your first do of the day, which is going to be considering your venue and the surroundings. So in choosing your wedding colors, I want you to think about where you're getting married. Is it at the top of a mountain? Is it in a hotel ballroom? Is it at an art gallery? Or is it in a garden setting? Kind of having an idea of your surroundings is gonna be helpful in picking your wedding colors because certain colors are gonna lend themselves better to certain surroundings. So let's go into our second do of finding your wedding colors. So number 2 is going to be consider the season that you are getting married. Certain seasons are just gonna lend themselves better to certain color palettes. So keep in mind the season you're getting married in terms of picking which colors you want for your wedding. We're gonna kind of dive into that a little bit later, but that's kind of a sneak peek at that. So now let's move into our third do. So our third do of picking your wedding colors is actually gonna be to pick more than just 1 or 2 colors. And I know that might sound crazy to you, but instead of just picking navy blue or a coral orange or a blush, I want you to pick a few additional colors or more shades within that same color family. Because when you do that, it's actually going to prevent your wedding from feeling so matchy-matchy, and it's gonna create a better cohesive overall feel of your day. So moving on to our fourth do when it comes to picking your wedding colors is to really pay attention to your surroundings and things around you. So this is great if you don't know what colors you want at this point still. So my recommendation here is to take a look at your closet, to take a look around your house and kind of things you own, and you're gonna start to see a trend in different colors that you're drawn towards. Now these colors are gonna be a great fit for your wedding because they're already colors you really like, and it's gonna make your wedding day feel a lot like you. So those are kind of my 4 tips in terms of picking your wedding colors. So now let's dive into a few of my tips when it comes to what not to do when picking your wedding colors. All right, so now let's dive into a few of the things I want you to not do when picking your wedding colors. So the first don't of picking your wedding colors is actually to not have all of your decor and everything in your wedding day to be the exact colors that you chose for your wedding. So again, I know I kind of touched on this already, but when you have everything in your wedding as just 2 colors, it's gonna feel very matchy-matchy. So again, don't have every piece of decor, every linen, every flower, every invitation be the exact same color. Instead, go ahead and pick some different shades and different colors that are gonna mesh well with those main colors you chose. Now let's move on to our second don't of picking your wedding colors. And this is gonna be specifically if you are getting married in a ballroom. So I don't want you to pick colors that match your carpet in the ballroom. So I know it sounds crazy, but if you're getting married in a ballroom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you tour a reception space, the first thing you notice when you walk into those spaces is the carpet. And so I can't tell you how often brides come to me and say, my venue has this color carpet, so I need to use this color for my wedding. And I'm gonna tell you that that's not the case. What you're not thinking about is once you get all of the tables in your reception space, once you get all of the linen, all of the chairs in there, and you also get some of the lighting that gets dimmed down, none of your guests are gonna see that carpet. So again, just gonna stress that again, don't feel like you have to choose your colors based on the carpet in your reception space. So now moving on to our third tip of what not to do when picking your wedding colors, and that's I don't want you to overthink it. So I know it can feel like a lot of pressure to pick the perfect color palette for your wedding, but really I want to remind you that any colors you end up choosing are going to be gorgeous. So don't overthink it here and just kind of pick a few and you can kind of move on and your wedding's going to be gorgeous. So those are my tips in terms of what not to do when picking your wedding colors. So now that we've talked about all of the do's and don'ts of picking your wedding colors, we're actually going to talk about some of the really popular color palettes per season and how to incorporate those into your wedding. So we're gonna start with fall. So fall is a really fun time when it comes to colors. Oftentimes when you think about fall, you're gonna think about deep reds, deep oranges, deep yellows. So kind of those deep colors of leaves changing is gonna be one of the color palettes that people think of most. And when it comes to those colors, I think one of the hardest things to do when you're putting colors into a wedding is how do we use all of those bold colors, but without making it feel like it's a Thanksgiving wedding or making it feel like it's a Halloween wedding. So I'm gonna kind of show you a few examples here. So our first example here, it incorporates a lot of those deep colors. So we have a lot of the oranges, a lot of the yellows, as you can see. But in order to make it feel like it's not a Thanksgiving wedding, we actually added a third color. And that color ended up being a little bit more of a deep pink. So it's in the same shade of the orange and the yellows, but it meshes really well and kind of pulls in this feel of not feeling like Thanksgiving. But as you can tell, it still feels very clearly like a fall wedding. So moving on to our second example, this is another one where you can kind of see we used a lot of those deep colors again. So there's a lot of the bold reds, oranges, and yellows, but instead of that being the predominant color, we also added a lot of neutrals in there as well, and a lot of the shades of taupe and shades of brown. So that was another way where we could incorporate those into that color palette so it didn't feel quite as Thanksgiving-like. So then moving on to our third example here, if you want a fall wedding and you want a color palette that feels very fall, but you're not looking for anything bold, sticking with all neutrals is a great option for you. So here you can see we used a lot of the whites, a lot of ivories, and a lot of different shades of taupes and light browns. So when you incorporate a lot of those taupes and light browns, it again keeps that fall feel, but it doesn't feel, again, like Thanksgiving. And so that's a great way to have a fall feeling wedding without it feeling like it's bold colors. So the next season we're gonna talk through is winter. So I know when it comes to winter, one of the biggest questions I get is how do I have a winter feeling wedding, but without making it feel like I'm getting married at Christmas? So we're gonna show you a few examples, and our first one here incorporates a lot of the reds and greens that you're gonna see at Christmas, but in order to make it feel like it's not a Christmas wedding, we actually incorporated a few other colors. So you can see we added a little bit of a mauve and a pink in there, and we also added a darker blue. So by adding those two additional colors, we're still keeping those same colors that are incorporated in Christmas and feel like winter, but that aren't gonna feel like you're having a Christmas wedding. So our next example actually is more of just a green wedding. So if you want something that just feels very wintry, but doesn't feel like it's gonna have any of the holiday vibes, this can be a great option for you. And so with this one, we went with a lot of the greens and we incorporated a lot of neutrals and blacks into the day, and then kind of accented with some golds. So this is great because it gives you a lot of that winter feel, but again, we're not including any of the reds, which are gonna feel very Christmassy. So here again, you're gonna have a very winter feeling wedding without it feeling holiday-like. So when it comes to picking colors for spring, I always say think about Easter. So I know it sounds a little bit silly, but Easter is really known for having all of those pastel shades. So some really great color palettes for Easter that we can talk through. Here's a few examples for you. Our first one actually incorporates a lot of the warm pastels. So these are gonna be colors such as your pinks, your light oranges or tangerine, or some different shades of light yellow. So that's kind of what we've incorporated in this color palette, and as you can see, it feels very spring-like. It's very welcoming and inviting and kind of feels a little bit like it has those Easter colors, but also like things are blooming. So that's one example of a color palette for spring. Now, if you're not interested in having quite as many bright colors, here's another option for you. In this color palette, we actually still used a few of those warmer tones with the oranges and yellows, but our focus was actually on a pastel purple. So this is a great way where it feels very spring-like, but again, it's not quite as bold in color palette as that first one. So those are my tips and recommendations for picking a color palette for spring. So now let's move into summer. All right, so our last season we're gonna talk through is summer. So when it comes to summer, I kind of see two different routes you can go with color palettes. The first is gonna be probably what you're thinking about when you think summer, and that's gonna be your really bright and bold color palette. So similar to spring, you're using a lot of those warm colors, but instead of using pastels, you're using a lot brighter tones of those. So as you can see on this example, we used a lot of bright reds and pinks and a lot of bright oranges and yellows. So that's kind of one route you can go when it comes to colors in summer. The other route, which I find works really well for summer as well, is to actually keep it in a lot of the neutral families. So that's gonna be having essentially a white and green wedding wedding, and then adding just a very subtle hint of another color and another pastel color. So oftentimes we'll see this as a light blush, as a light blue, as a light taupe. The possibilities there are endless of what you can add in there. So it's just a very subtle hint of a second color. And while I think this color palette works really great for summer, I think it's also very classic and timeless color palette that can really work for any season you're looking at. And those are essentially all my tips when it comes to picking wedding colors per season. But I also wanted to throw one more thing in there for you guys, and that's that while we're talking about all of these recommendations on picking colors, ultimately you need to like the colors for your wedding. So while these are all great tips and advice, always pick colors that you love and that you're gonna be excited about for your wedding. All right, so I hope you enjoyed all of our tips in terms of the do's and don'ts of picking your wedding colors and how to choose colors based on the season you're getting married. So if you enjoyed that, be sure to check out the description below and follow me on Instagram, where we have lots of great color inspirations for you guys to look at. And be sure to head on over to our website for more information. And then we actually have a really great free guide for you guys today, which is gonna guide you through the process of picking your wedding colors. So again, go ahead and click the link to grab that below. And don't forget to click the like button below, and be sure to share this video with anybody you think would find it helpful. And be sure to subscribe to Wed Mayhem for more wedding advice from both myself and other wedding professionals. Again, I'm Ashley McCone with Always Flawless Productions, and I'm here with Wed Mayhem, and we are vowed to your vision.